In this video, I want to go over some information to kind of give you a better idea of what's going on in this country. And it will also show you how Black people are being used as pawns. If you think back to when Black Lives Matter came out, with the George Floyd situation, the movement, the protest was supposed to be about how George Floyd lost his life and police brutality against Black people. So it was supposed to be a peaceful march to demonstrate to have better things put in place when it comes to police officers dealing with the Black community. And you can see during that peaceful march, there was another organization that came in, which was Antifa. Antifa, they started destroying things. They started breaking into banks, post office. They started setting places on fire. They was just being very destructive. They was destroying statues, spray painting statues and everything like that.
Antifa is not a new group, but it's certainly been all over social media lately, including on the president's Twitter timeline. So what do you need to know? Let's take a closer look.
You have probably heard the term Antifa a lot lately.
Antifa.
President Trump recently tweeted that he is designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. But what is Antifa? Who is in it? And why is the spotlight back on the group when it's been in existence for decades? Antifa, which stands for anti-fascist, is a loosely connected series of groups with shared left or extreme left ideology. They have no central governing body, no defined roles, and because of their self-admitted secrecy, it is hard to know how many people count themselves as members. Antifa supporters generally campaign, organize, and protest, sometimes violently, against actions, people, and organizations they view as promoting authoritarian, racist, homophobic, or xenophobic beliefs. Anti-fascist groups can be traced back to Europe during World War II, where grassroots, mostly underground resistance movements, fought to gain control of the continent back from Nazi Germany and fascist Italy. The modern Antifa movement gained international attention in 2011 during Occupy Wall Street, again 2 years later when they affiliated themselves with Black Lives Matter, and for counter-demonstrations at the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Some Antifa groups are known for their community outreach and organizing, while others deploy often militant and radical tactics to get their message across. And without a real hierarchy or structure, Antifa is not so much an organization as a loose confederation of people with a similar ideology.
But when you looked at the news and the TV, all that damage and destruction was associated with Black Lives Matter. And then when you look at what Donald Trump was saying, he did call out the destruction and said, no, it was Antifa. And he wanted to label them as a terrorist group. So what I want to do now is show you a video of what Black Lives Matter really stands for.
Why did Black Lives Matter take down their What We Believe page? Isn't that important, what they believe? Of course it is. But when you look on their website now, it says page not found. It used to say, we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement, use rhetoric like comrades, and got some backlash from Marcellus Wiley, if you remember this clip.
I don't know how many people really look into the mission statement of Black Lives Matter. Quote, we dismantle the patriarchal practice. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement. Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement.
So why did they delete it? We'll get into that in a little bit. I read the Communist Manifesto and straight out of it, abolition of the family. Even the most radical flare-up at this infamous proposal of the communists, which Karl Marx then explained why he wanted to destroy the nuclear family, just like Black Lives Matter. Maybe even more radical out of the book, it said, in this sense, the theory of the communists may be summed up in the single sentence, abolition of private property. So when you see them destroying private property, it's not a coincidence. They don't think you have property. They want to take away all private property and put it into the hands of the state. They clearly state that abolition of property and land, confiscation of the property of all immigrants and rebels, centralization of credit in the hands of the state, a national bank, centralization of the means of communication and transport into the hands of the state. They want total control and they don't care how they get it.
We mustn't kid ourselves into thinking that the communists have placed their agitators only into the black communities. They're working both sides of the street. They want hatred, violence, and bloodshed between the races, and they don't care how they get it or whom they use, even children if necessary.
So when the founder tells you she's a trained Marxist,
that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories.
And they're following Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto, and people start catching on to their comrades and abolition of family rhetoric. They just delete their What We Believe.
As you can see, the leaders of Black Lives Matter believe in Marxism. That's what they practice. That's what they put out. That's what their goal is Marxism. They do not believe in the unity of family. They want to destroy that. They basically want to get rid of the man and have the woman as the head of the household, has the woman up front in the leadership position. They do not believe in classes. They want a classless society. Things like factories, land production, and all that, they want that to be owned collectively.
Convicted terrorists sit on the board of a Black Lives Matter funding body. They're, of course, talking about Susan Rosenberg, who the New York Times wrote about in 2001. Officials criticized Clinton's pardon of an ex-terrorist because Bill Clinton pardoned Susan L. Rosenberg, a one-time member of the Weather Underground terrorist group who was charged in the notorious 1981 Brinks robbery in Rockland County that left a guard and 2 police officers dead. So killing police officers and terrorism isn't new, and this woman, Susan Rosenberg, sat on their funding board. It's so true that even Snopes had trouble disproving it. Did a convicted terrorist sit on the board of a BLM funding body? The past crimes of Susan Rosenberg reemerged in the summer of 2020. They even say mixture, and we'll see why. Susan Rosenberg is a convicted terrorist who has sat on the board of directors of Thousand Currents, an organization which handles fundraising for the Black Lives Matter global network. What's true? Susan Rosenberg has served as vice chair of the board of directors for Thousand Currents, an organization that provides fundraising and fiscal sponsorship for the Black Lives Matter global movement. She was an active member of the revolutionary left-wing movements whose illegal activities included bombing U.S. government buildings and committing armed robberies. What's undetermined? Well, they were just covering for her on Snopes and saying, in the absence of a single universally agreed definition of terrorism, it's a matter of subjective determination as to whether the actions for which Rosenberg was convicted and imprisoned, possession of weapons and hundreds of pounds of explosives, should be described as acts of domestic terrorism. You'll see Snopes as more of a Democratic Party / left-wing cover-up PR team than they are an unbiased fact-checker. They twist everything that they possibly can to make the left-wing look like complete angels, to the point where even New York Times in 2001 was more to the point than they are. So they're trained Marxists who deleted their "what we believe" because they don't want people to actually know what they believe, because people will figure out it's Marxist and communist rhetoric, working with a convicted terrorist and trained Marxists.
You can see who Black Lives Matter associates with. Susan Rosenberg is a convicted terrorist who actually sat on the board of Black Lives Matter. Susan Rosenberg is part of a group called M19CO, and they play a part in the U.S. Senate being bombed back in November 7, 1983.
Well, who are they trained by? Some reports suggest it was Eric Mann, former agitator of the Weather Underground domestic terror organization, and spent years absorbing the Marxist-Leninist ideology.
That's what you teach at the Strategy Center. How did you get started?
Well, I come out of a Jewish, socialist, somewhat anti-communist tradition. Not me, but that's what I come out of. Very strong anti-fascist. It's a joke, but I say that the fascist bastards were the first words that came out of my mouth, because that's all I kept hearing about fascists and Jews and genocide. And I'm very proud of my parents for not. At 5 years old, I was thinking about people starving in Europe. I didn't know what Europe was. And there's a world made up of goyim who attack us and put us in concentration camps, and we got to fight them. That was the main point. My mom said, stand up to those anti-Semites. Don't let them push us around. So then when I met the black movement, I said, oh, I thought Jews were assertive. Wait till I saw this is the ultimate assertion, the ultimate anger. And what I didn't get before was a revolutionary theory of change.
So he just said there's a world made of goyim, and we have to fight that.
And there's a world made up of goyim who attack us and put us in concentration camps, and we got to fight them. That was the main point. My mom said, stand up to those anti-Semites. Don't let them push us around.
If you don't know what goyim means, it's a Jewish word that means non-Jew. So he's very ethnocentric, and he sees every non-Jew as some sort of threat. When he said black movement, he may have been talking about from 1975, when his August 29th movement teamed up with the Black Revolutionary Communist League to form a multiracial, far left-wing coalition. And let's look into what's going on in this country this year. Domestic terrorism. By definition, I know Snopes wants to say, well, we're not really sure that it's domestic terrorism. Whether it's Google, Oxford, the FBI website, it's pretty clear. Acts of violence for political or social reasons is domestic terrorism. There are terrorists all over our country destroying federal properties, innocent small businesses. In fact, recently there was a study by Axios, more damage done than any riot in modern U.S. history. Newsbreak, BLM riots are officially the most costly man-made damage to American property in history.
Then we have Eric Mann. He actually trained the leaders of Black Lives Matter in Marxism. And you see, he said it himself, he's seen the anger of Black people and felt that he can use it to actually push his agenda to get what he wanted from society, because he, as a Jewish man, felt that everyone was against him. Everyone in the world was against the Jewish people and they had to destroy them. So instead of him continue on with his movement, he decided to harness and use Black people as a pawn and put them in the front line in order to push his agenda to get what he wanted. And as you can see, they stated that of all the protests, Black Lives Matter protest was the most expensive when it comes to the cost of destruction, the most damage that was done. Did Black people participate in some of the looting? Yes. But the majority of the destruction, the police violence that took place, a lot of that things was done because of Antifa. Antifa did not care about what was going on with Black Lives Matter movement and what Black people actually thought it was about. Like I said, it was underlying had to do with Marxism and what the Black Lives Matter leaders and movements and everybody else wanted to take place at the hands of Black people. And Antifa, they just came in because they are against fascism.
So there is terrorism going on, and these Black Lives Matter, Marxist, Leninist, communist types never want to say it's going on. They never want to condemn it. They only seem to inspire it, make excuses for it, and go on television and say, let's burn it down. Interestingly enough, Patrisse Cullors, who admits she's a trained Marxist, who reportedly was the protege of who I just showed you, Eric Mann, wrote a book called When They Call You a Terrorist, a Black Lives Matter memoir, because she wants to play the victim. I don't see any terrorism going on at all. Of course, people are murdering police officers, burning things down. I'm not really saying anything about it, but I'll write a book about when they call me a terrorist. Innocent old me, the trained Marxist, with a foreword by Angela Davis. Who is Angela Davis? A known and admitted communist.
What I generally say, and I answered the brother and tried to explain in a few words why I was a communist, and I said essentially the same thing that I said when I told you why I was a revolutionary, because I have a very strong love for oppressed people, for my people. I want to see them free, and I want to see all oppressed people throughout the world free. And I realize that the only way that we can do this is by moving towards a revolutionary society.
So these people will do anything. Delete their website, do the runaround, tell you they're anti-communist or they're secretly progressive and revolutionary and totally different, but behind closed door, they're communists. They believe in communism, they have forwards by communists. Their agenda looks eerily similar to Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto, which has led to millions of people dead, which is not surprising when you look at how they operate, surrounding themselves by domestic terrorists, making excuses for domestic terrorists, and although they act like they're for the worker, I hate to break it to Patrisse and these women at Black Lives Matter, but you're being used. Karl Marx was a con artist. He didn't believe in working people. He was similar to Eric Mann, saying, oh, look at those angry Black people. We sure could use them for our agenda and our personal means. If you don't believe me, once again, Karl Marx wanted to centralize all the means of communication and transport and have a central bank and confiscation of property. Does that sound like workers' rights to you? Someone seizing all the means of the money, transport, and communication? No, that's total control. So when they say, well, communism's never worked properly, no, it's worked exactly how it was designed. It's not this movement for the people. Karl Marx duped you. And that was written about by Manning Johnson, a Black Communist Party member who did what Angela Davis did and these women did decades before. And after he left the Communist Party, he spilled the beans about what they were really doing, how they were using Black people, like I just said, to achieve a wicked agenda of control and power. And in some cases, like Eric Mann explains, a personal ethnic-based vendetta. I want to show you this out of Color, Communism, and Common Sense. They were trying to subvert Black churches even then. They say created doubt, lack of confidence, suspicion, setting up situations that bring about racial bitterness, violence, and conflict, putting forth demands so unrealistic that race relations are worsened, attacking everybody in disagreement as reactionaries, fascists, Ku Kluxers among whites, and Uncle Toms among Blacks. This is the same thing they do today, and they always did it back then as well. Everybody who disagrees with me is KKK or a fascist, bringing about racial demands that are so insane that they're only going to make racial tensions worse. Sound familiar? Black Lives Matter. That's what they're doing by design. They're trained Marxists, guys. These are not just random people. They delete the who we are on their website because most people don't care who they are. LeBron James, these sports players, NBA, major sports league, they just hear Black Lives Matter and they think, oh, we're helping people, so we have to do this, even though they're being puppeted by literal communists. And communism has killed millions of people.
And I have stated time and time again that the worst thing that ever happened to the Black community are the Black churches. And you can see how the agenda they are pushing through the Black churches to the Black community. Once again, I'm not saying all Black churches are following this lead. There are some true Black church who believe in God and who are pushing the people towards God, reading their Bible. But then there are Black churches that has nothing to do with God. They have an agenda. They get black people together, get excuse me, get them riled up, get them upset, use that black anger to get what they want. And it has nothing to do with uplifting black people. If you look at the definition of communism, it's about there is no private property. So that means you're not going to be owning anything. The government is going to be owning everything. So they want to get rid of all private property, excuse me, and put it in the hands of the government and have the government run it. Not the current government that we have, but a government that they feel would be better able to handle running people. So you would not own anything. The government will own everything. So how is that benefiting individuals who have different needs, who have different wants, who have different desires? It doesn't. Each of these organizations, they're coming together, and like I said, the only thing they want to do is undermine the government. That's why every time the Republican take leadership position, they come up with all this stuff to make it seem like they're trying to hurt black people. They don't want black people to advance. They want to hold black people down. That's what they keep telling you as black people about the the Republican Party, because they want you angry against them. They want you fighting against them. They're using you to keep yourself in slavery, in mental slavery. So you're going to always be the angry black person. You're always going to be, I'm ready to fight, I'm ready to protest. But what are you fighting for? Everything that these people stand for has nothing to do with uplifting the black community, has nothing to do with uplifting the black people. You have your own people in place selling you out for Marxism, for communists, for Antifa. They're selling you out to all these groups that doesn't care about black people. They only care about their agenda. And none of these groups, if you really look at what they stand for, they don't even stand for the same thing other than undermining the government. That's why you see them giving money to so many different countries and doing different things like that to undermine the government, to get rid of the money, to put people in debt. So if you're in debt, then the government comes say, okay, what we can do is we can do this, this, and that to help you out. So now you're in a system where the government is running things. So you're giving up your freedom. So every black person who's with the Democratic Party, who believe that the Democratic Party is going to help you, they are not. And if you think about what these people are standing for, and you keep saying, oh, they need to give us reparation. Why? Reparation is individually. None of these organizations stands for individually. They want some type of co-op. They want some type of group. One want factories and land and all that to be owned as a co-op. The other one want everything owned by the government. So where that comes in, so how getting reparation is going to benefit you. Well, excuse me, benefit them. I know how it's going to benefit you or us, but how is it going to benefit them? It's not, because that's individualized. So they don't want the money in the hands of the people. They don't want you owning property. They don't want any of that. And so I feel that it's very important that in this society that we live in now, that people open their eyes. Because if you think about it, you don't own anything. So anybody can just come and say, oh, I'm going to stay in your house. I'm traveling. I don't have anywhere to go, so I'm going to be on your land. You can't put them off because it's not your land. It's a co-op. Everybody working together. But how can that work in a society where you can't even trust the people in your household to not do anything to your kids? So how is that going to work? You see what going on in churches. They don't talk about protecting kids. They don't talk about protecting women. They clown around because they're trying to keep you entertained. They're trying to keep you confused. They're trying to keep you in a position where you're not thinking for yourself. As long as they can keep you sick, as long as they can keep you where you're not thinking, as long as they can give you a target to direct your anger at, it's their fault, it's their fault, it's their fault. But in reality, the people that's cheering you on, the people that's supporting you, are the ones who's causing you all this pain. All these years, when have you ever seen the Black church go out into the community to really try to help the community grow, to help the community build? They don't want to do that, because if they do that, where is the anger? Where's the hate? Where's that energy? Where's that Black energy they can use to push their agenda? It's not there anymore. So I'm going to take everything from you to keep you mad, to keep you down, to keep you in that hateful spirit. I'm going to tell you the reason you're not succeeding is because of them. The government that we have in place, the rich people. How many people want to be rich? Raise your hand. How many people want to be millionaires? How many people want to be billionaires? How can you be what you hate? Mentally, you can't, because they don't go together. You're saying, I want to be a billionaire. I want to have money. I want to be successful. I want to own a house. But you hate money. You hate people that got money because they done convince you that money is evil. Certain things people do to get money is evil, but money itself is not evil. If you look at the Bible, God is always talking about growth. Planting seeds. When you plant seed, you expect what? A harvest. You expect a return. You expect to see growth. You expect abundance. He tells you to work with your hands. In the Bible, it talks about business, how to run your business, how to be a proper business owner. All this is in the Bible, but do the Black church ever talk about that? No. They keep telling you, if you give me money, God gonna give you money. But God told you how it works already. But they keep doing that to hold you down. Then you get to the point where you start hating God because you're not seeing what you feel you should see. So they trying to separate you from God. They trying to destroy the Black family, the Black household, when we know that it's important that the Black household stick together in order to actually grow, in order to actually prosper. That male figure need to be in that household. Two can always do better than one. But they trying to take you out of that mindset. So when it comes to protesting against Target, being on the fast, doing all that, how is that benefiting the community? It doesn't. You're playing into their hands. That's why they want you to march. That's why even when you go back and look at the video with Jamal Bryant, he's saying marching is good. They need that Black energy out there to hide behind. They need that Black anger out there to hide behind. So as Black people, at what point in time are you going to let those scales fall off your eyes and see what's really going on? See how you're part of your own destruction because you're allowing them to use you as a pawn. Jeremiah 29, 4-9, ESV. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, to all the exiles who I have sent into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon: build houses and live in them, plant gardens and eat their produce. Take wives and have sons and daughters. Take wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there and do not decrease, but seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare. For thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel: do not let your prophets and your diviners who are amongst you deceive you, and do not listen to the dreams that they dream, for it is a lie that they are prophesying to you in my name. I did not send them, declared the Lord.